Walmart is an American-based retail store that sought to expand into North America. During the early 1990s, between George W. Bush relinquishing his presidential duties to Bill Clinton, the North American Free Trade Agreement laws were under review. During this time of negotiational shifts, North American companies were freely allowed to trade with Mexico. Therefore, they took advantage of the trade of goods without taxes and other trade barriers. Walmart opened the store in Walmart de Mexico in Mexico City shortly after the Free Trade Agreement was passed. In a way to gain an edge on the competition and ensure that they were the only large establishment in Mexico, Walmart began bribing council members and city officials in order to fast-track permits to extend their store sites and business. These bribes totaled in excess of $24 million US. The investigation into Walmart began in 2005. During the course of the investigations, the auditors experienced a great amount of resistance from Walmart de Mexico's executives, as the executives have gone to great lengths to cover up the bribes as legal fees and gestors. The initial internal audits undertaken by Walmart were a failure due to the fact that the members of Walmart that were undertaking the audit were the members under investigation. Thus, an internal audit failed due to the lack of independence and professional auditors.
The accounting failure in the Walmart bribery scandal involved the concealment of bribes, which were recorded as legal fees. The bribes were paid through gestores or fixers, who were monitored by a system of codes. Invoices were submitted with vague descriptions of the services provided, whilst the codes identified the real services, or in this case, the bribes. Walmart Mexico executives received a monthly schedule of all the payments, which were then purified and concealed as legal fees in the accounting records. An effective accounting system with internal controls should have raised red flags and prevented further entries, as according to investigators, the documentation didn't look anything like you would expect to find in legitimate billing records from a legitimate law firm.
It is important for all organisations to maintain a high standard of corporate governance. This ensures increased accountability of the company, and therefore it should avoid massive disasters before they occur. In the case of Walmart, the company had high compliance systems to identify corruption. However, the negative corporate culture from high-level managers overrode those systems and resulted in them failing in their duties of corporate governance. Walmart's major failure was performance-based, due to the lack of ethical behaviour of management and the failure to perform when evidence arose of the corruption, and therefore violating a fundamental function of corporate governance. In addition to the bribery scandal itself, high-level managers also influenced, seized, and avoided multiple investigations into the bribery scandal, through in-house teams investigating the matter, and not one that is independent. Bribery is bad, but they have repeated warnings of a failure, and not follow up those claims shows a clear underlying lack of conformance and performance in Walmart's standard of corporate governance.
Ernst & Young is supposed to provide assurance services for Walmart to enhance confidence in intended users. Ernst & Young do not fail in a financial sense, but more in a laws and regulations sense. You would assume Walmart did not use any traceable money for bribery, so the financial auditing by Ernst & Young is assumed to be correct. But auditing is not purely based on finances. It is also involved in the operation of business, and bribery should never occur. In 2004, when the bribery was taking place, an audit of red flag gestors payment was fired. This is part of an audit failure. If a red flag is found, then it should be investigated. A compliance audit should have taken place by Ernst & Young. There is no evidence that Ernst & Young investigated Walmart's activities, being able to miraculously earn last-minute permits, red flags investigators, not being in fulfilled, and being undermanned. Not enough questions were being asked by Ernst & Young. Ernst & Young were neither sceptical enough nor aggressive enough. It is unclear if they turned a blind eye for the bribes. However, it is clear that they did not do enough to detect the bribery occurring.
Audit failures generally lead to hefty fines and, in some extreme circumstances, criminal penalties, including imprisonment, and even the closure of a business. Seeing as Walmart is still operating and currently the world's largest company in terms of revenue earned, the closure of a business is not always the consequence of an audit failure. Hundreds of investigators and forensic accountants were hired by Walmart, and serious wrongdoings were found, including bribery, forcing resignations upon top executives in Mexico and India. Since the audit failure occurred, Walmart has pumped millions of dollars worth of funds into anti-corruption training in an attempt to prevent such a failure from reoccurring. In 2012 alone, Walmart spent beyond $100 million on investigation-related costs. To this day, investigations continue in search for violations of the Foreign Corporate Practices Act by bribing foreign officials. Walmart is also facing shareholder lawsuits from several major pension funds. Today, Walmart is still suffering from the consequences of their audit failure, with their significant fall in share prices and tarnished reputation being two factors they still deal with today. To conclude, the accounting failure that occurred involved the concealment of bribes paid through gestors via recording them as legal fees regardless of the apparent illegitimacy of the documents, which should have raised red flags. Management should have performed their duties to an acceptable standard of corporate governance and maintained the appropriate ethical behaviour required by such a large company. Ernst & Young were not aggressive enough nor sceptical enough in their approach, and it is clear that they did not fulfil their required duties as an external auditor to detect the bribery which occurred. The consequences of the audit failure involved hundreds of millions of dollars spent on investigation-related costs, where investigations related to the audit failure continue to this day, with many unanswered questions looming around this case.